"I can tame any wild horse," said the giant Maid. The Apache laughs, but is shocked. The thunderous crash of splintering wood echoes through the dusty main street of Copper Ridge as the black stallion named Devil's Thunder smashes through another fence, his wild eyes gleaming with untamed fury. 3 cowboys lie motionless in the dirt, their bodies twisted at unnatural angles, while the beast disappears into the crimson dawn horizon like a phantom of destruction. Sheriff Tom Bradley removes his hat, running weathered fingers through graying hair as he surveys the carnage. This marks the 7th attack in 2 weeks, and the townspeople are growing desperate. Inside the Grand Whitmore Ranch house, a towering figure moves silently through the parlor, her massive frame casting long shadows across polished hardwood floors. Margaret O'Brien stands 6 feet 2 inches tall, her broad shoulders and powerful arms hidden beneath the conservative black dress of a domestic servant. Her Irish accent carries hints of something darker, something she's spent years trying to bury. As she dusts the ornate furniture, her callous hands reveal a past that doesn't match her current station. These are not the soft hands of a woman who has spent her life in drawing rooms and kitchens. The ranch owner's wife, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, barely acknowledges Margaret's presence as she sips her morning tea, discussing the stallion problem with her husband. The conversation reveals the growing panic spreading through the territory. Devil's Thunder has killed 2 horses and injured countless men, and no cowboy in Arizona territory has managed to get within 50 feet of the beast without being trampled or thrown. The reward has grown to $300, enough money to buy a small ranch, but still no one dares attempt what seems impossible. Margaret pauses in her work, her steel-gray eyes focusing on something beyond the window. In the distance, she can see the stallion moving across the mesa, his black coat gleaming like polished obsidian against the red rock formations. Something stirs deep within her chest, a recognition that makes her hands tremble slightly. This is no ordinary wild horse. There's intelligence in those movements, a purpose that speaks of trauma and loss rather than simple wildness. The scene shifts to the local saloon where desperate ranchers gather around whiskey-stained tables, their voices heavy with frustration and fear. The conversation grows heated as they discuss bringing in professional horse hunters from California, men with rifles and rope who care nothing about preserving the animal's life. The stallion has become more than a nuisance. He represents everything wild and unconquerable in a land they're trying to civilize. From the shadows near the saloon's entrance, a figure watches and listens. Iona moves with the fluid grace of someone born to this harsh landscape, his Apache heritage evident in every deliberate step. His weathered face remains expressionless as he observes these white men discussing the destruction of something they cannot understand or control. He has seen the stallion too, recognizes the pain that drives such fury, but he also knows these settlers will not rest until the horse is dead or broken. Margaret's evening routine takes her past the saloon, and she cannot help but overhear the increasingly desperate plans being discussed inside. When one cowboy suggests poisoning the water holes where the stallion drinks, something snaps inside her chest. She pushes through the swinging doors with a force that makes every man in the room turn toward her towering presence. The silence that follows is profound and uncomfortable. These men are not accustomed to being interrupted by a woman, especially not a servant woman who stands taller than most of them. Margaret's voice, when she finally speaks, carries an authority that seems to come from somewhere deep and ancient within her soul. She tells them she can tame the stallion, that she can bring Devil's Thunder in alive and unharmed. The laughter that erupts is cruel and dismissive. These hardened cowboys, men who pride themselves on their expertise with horses and livestock, find the idea of a housemaid succeeding where they have failed to be utterly ridiculous. Their mockery carries undertones of class distinction and gender prejudice that have defined this frontier society for generations. Iona steps forward from the shadows, his presence immediately changing the atmosphere in the room. When he laughs, it's not the cruel mockery of the cowboys, but something deeper and more knowing. He has watched this woman for weeks, noticed things about her that others have missed. There's something in her movements, in the way she carries herself, that suggests hidden depths. Margaret's response to the Apache's laughter is unexpected. Instead of anger or embarrassment, she meets his gaze directly, and for a moment, something passes between them. It's a recognition of shared knowledge, of understanding that goes beyond words. She has seen him watching her, knows that his observation carries more weight than the dismissive laughter of ignorant cowboys. The challenge is set, though no formal agreement has been reached. Margaret declares that she will bring in Devil's Thunder within 3 days, alive and unharmed, or she will leave Copper Ridge forever. The stakes feel impossibly high for a woman who earns $12 a month cleaning other people's houses and serving their meals. As the crowd disperses, Ayanna approaches Margaret outside the saloon. Their conversation is brief but loaded with unspoken implications. He tells her that many have tried to capture the stallion using force and cunning, but none have succeeded because they don't understand what drives the animal's rage. There's wisdom in his words that suggests he knows more about the horse's history than he's willing to reveal. That night, Margaret stands at her small bedroom window in the servants' quarters, staring out at the moonlit landscape where Devil's Thunder roams free. Her hands shake as she removes a small leather pouch from beneath her mattress, revealing items that tell a different story about her past. A silver bit, worn smooth by years of use. A braided leather rein that shows the craftsmanship of someone who truly understands horses. A faded photograph of a young woman in riding clothes, standing beside a magnificent stallion. The photograph reveals Margaret as she was years ago, before tragedy and circumstance forced her into hiding. She was once considered the finest horse trainer in Boston, a woman who could gentle the most difficult animals with patience and intuitive understanding. But something happened, something terrible enough to make her abandon that life and flee west under an assumed identity. As Chapter 1 draws to a close, Margaret makes her decision. Tomorrow, she will venture out to find Devil's Thunder, carrying nothing but her hidden knowledge and a desperate hope that she can reclaim not just the stallion's trust, but her own lost identity. The mystery of what drove both woman and horse to this remote corner of Arizona territory remains unsolved, creating a tension that will pull viewers inexorably toward the next chapter. The final shot shows Ayanna watching from a distant ridge, as Margaret prepares for what may be either her redemption or her destruction, the Apache warrior's expression suggesting he knows far more about both woman and horse than anyone suspects. Dawn breaks over the Arizona territory with the kind of fierce beauty that can make a person forget about civilization entirely. Margaret O'Brien moves through the scrubland with surprising stealth for someone of her imposing stature, her modified riding clothes allowing for freedom of movement she hasn't experienced in years. The transformation is remarkable. Gone is the submissive posture of a domestic servant, replaced by the confident bearing of someone who belongs in this wild landscape. She carries a worn leather saddlebag containing items that would puzzle most observers. Instead of ropes or whips, there are apples wrapped in cloth, a small pouch of oats, and strangest of all, a wooden flute carved with intricate Celtic designs. These are the tools of someone who understands that true communication with horses requires patience and respect rather than dominance and force. The trail leads toward Devil's Canyon, a treacherous stretch of red rock formations where the stallion has been spotted most frequently. As Margaret navigates the narrow passages, she becomes aware that she's not alone. Ayanna shadows her movements from a parallel ridge, his presence both protective and curious. He has spent the night considering what he witnessed in the saloon, and certain details about this unusual woman have begun to form a pattern in his mind. The Apache warrior possesses knowledge that could change everything about this encounter. 3 years ago, he was present when a cavalry unit passed through Apache territory, transporting military horses from Fort Huachuca to California. Among those horses was a magnificent black stallion, the finest mount he had ever seen. The horse belonged to a young cavalry officer named Lieutenant James Morrison, a man known for his unusual gentleness with animals and his respect for Apache customs. But tragedy struck when Morrison's unit was ambushed by a rogue band of outlaws, who cared nothing for the ongoing peace treaties. The lieutenant died defending his men, and in the chaos that followed, his beloved stallion disappeared into the wilderness. What Iona never revealed to the military investigators was that he had followed the horse for days, watching as the animal grieved for his lost rider with a depth of emotion that defied explanation. Now, as Margaret approaches the canyon where Devil's Thunder has made his territory, pieces of a larger puzzle begin to fall into place. The stallion's attacks have not been random acts of wildness, but calculated strikes against anything that reminds him of the military life he once knew. Cavalry horses, soldiers' gear, even the sound of bugles from nearby Fort Apache trigger memories that fill him with rage and sorrow. Margaret pauses at the canyon's entrance, her trained ear picking up sounds that others would miss. There's a rhythm to the horse's movements, a pattern that speaks of pain beyond the physical. She recognizes the signs of an animal in mourning, something she understands with intimate clarity. Her own loss, the reason she fled Boston and her former life, involved a similar tragedy that nearly destroyed her spirit entirely. The memory surfaces unbidden as she moves deeper into the canyon. She was once Margaret O'Brien Morrison, wife of Lieutenant James Morrison, and the finest horse trainer in New England. Their love story had been the stuff of fairy tales, two people united by their shared passion for horses and their dream of starting a ranch in the Western Territories. But James had insisted on completing his military service first, a decision that would prove fatal. When news of his death reached her through official military channels, Margaret's world collapsed entirely. The Army's account of the ambush was sanitized and incomplete, offering no closure or understanding of what had really happened to the man she loved. Worse, James's commanding officer had suggested that her husband's gentleness with horses and his respect for native peoples made him unsuitable for frontier military service, implying that his character flaws had contributed to his death. Unable to bear the weight of grief and anger, Margaret had abandoned her former identity and fled west under her maiden name. She became a servant to hide from a world that no longer made sense, choosing invisible anonymity over the risk of further heartbreak. But now, standing in this remote canyon, where her husband's horse has taken refuge, she realizes that fate has orchestrated this reunion for reasons beyond coincidence. Devil's Thunder appears without warning, emerging from behind a massive boulder like a shadow given substance. He is even more magnificent than the stories suggested, his black coat gleaming with health despite months of wild living. But Margaret's trained eye immediately notices the subtle signs of his emotional state. His ears flick constantly, searching for sounds that will never come. His eyes hold an intelligence shadowed by loss that matches her own. The horse stops dead when he sees her, nostrils flaring as he processes her scent. Something in his posture shifts, a recognition that goes deeper than simple animal instinct. Margaret remains perfectly still, allowing the stallion to make the first move. She understands that this moment requires patience measured in heartbeats rather than minutes. Slowly, almost hesitantly, Devil's Thunder approaches. His massive head lowers as he catches her scent more fully, and something extraordinary happens. The aggression that has terrified an entire territory melts away, replaced by a vulnerability that brings tears to Margaret's eyes. This horse remembers her. Despite the years and the distance, despite her changed appearance and circumstances, he recognizes the woman his beloved master married. From his hidden vantage point, Iona witnesses something that defies his understanding of both horses and human nature. The stallion that has injured dozens of men and killed 2 horses approaches this strange woman, like a devoted pet seeking comfort from a long-lost friend. The Apache warrior realizes he is observing something sacred, a reunion that transcends the boundaries between species and touches something fundamental about love and loyalty. Margaret reaches into her saddlebag and produces the wooden flute, an instrument James had carved for her during their brief marriage. The melody she plays is simple but haunting, an Irish air that speaks of home and loss, and the enduring power of memory. Devil's Thunder responds immediately, pressing his great head against her shoulder, as if seeking the physical comfort he has been denied for so long. The truth of the situation becomes clear through Margaret's whispered words to the horse. She tells him about the years of searching for information about James's death, about the military bureaucracy that treated her husband's sacrifice as a mere statistic, about her own cowardice in running away instead of fighting for the truth. She admits her failures as she runs gentle hands over the stallion's neck, acknowledging that both of them have been hiding from grief instead of honoring the memory of the man they both loved. But this reunion serves a greater purpose than simple comfort. Margaret realizes that Devil's Thunder has been trying to tell her something through his seemingly random attacks. Each target has been connected to the military unit that failed to protect James, the same unit whose survivors have been stationed at various posts throughout the territory. The horse's intelligence and memory have allowed him to track down reminders of that terrible day, seeking a justice that human institutions have failed to provide. Iona descends from his hiding place, no longer content to remain a silent observer. His approach causes Devil's Thunder to tense momentarily, but Margaret's calming presence keeps the stallion from reverting to his aggressive behavior. The Apache warrior's revelation changes everything about the situation. He tells Margaret about witnessing her husband's final moments, about James's courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and about the respect he earned from Apache observers who saw him die defending his men. More importantly, Iona reveals information that military investigators never uncovered. The outlaw band that ambushed the cavalry unit included a deserter from James's own company, a man named Sergeant William Cortez, who had been selling military weapons to hostile raiders. James had discovered Cortez's treachery and was planning to report it when the ambush occurred. The lieutenant's death was not the result of poor judgment or character flaws, but the consequence of his integrity and courage. This revelation provides the closure Margaret has sought for years, but it also presents her with a choice that will define the rest of her life. She can return to her hidden existence as a servant, keeping this knowledge secret and allowing the world to continue believing lies about her husband's death. Or she can reclaim her true identity and fight for the justice that both she and Devil's Thunder have been seeking. The decision comes naturally, emerging from a strength she thought she had lost forever. Margaret O'Brien Morrison steps out of the shadows she has inhabited for years, ready to honor her husband's memory by living as the woman he married rather than the broken creature she became. Devil's Thunder seems to sense this transformation, his own posture changing from defensive wariness to alert readiness. The journey back to Copper Ridge becomes a triumphant procession that no one who witnesses it will ever forget. Margaret rides Devil's Thunder bareback through the main street of town, her commanding presence silencing the skeptics and doubters who had mocked her claim. But this is more than a simple demonstration of horse training skills. It's a declaration of identity, a reclamation of power, and a promise of justice for wrongs that have gone unaddressed for too long. Iona accompanies them as both witness and ally, his respect for this remarkable woman growing with each passing moment. He understands that he has participated in something larger than the taming of a wild horse. He has helped facilitate a healing that extends beyond individual grief to touch questions of honor, justice, and the proper relationship between human beings and the natural world. The story concludes not with simple resolution, but with the promise of new beginnings. Margaret will use her newfound strength and Iana's testimony to pursue justice for her husband's death and expose the corruption that led to his murder. Devil's Thunder will remain with her as both companion and reminder that love and loyalty can survive even the greatest tragedies. The giant maid who claimed she could tame any wild horse has proven her point in ways that no one anticipated. But more importantly, she has discovered that sometimes the act of healing others becomes the path to healing ourselves, and that the courage to face truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to honor those we have lost and reclaim the lives we thought were gone forever. The first light of dawn finds Margaret moving through the canyon like a ghost from another life. Her servant's dress has been replaced by riding clothes hidden for years, and with each step away from town, the submissive housemaid disappears entirely. What emerges is something the people of Copper Ridge have never seen: a woman who moves with the confidence of someone who truly understands horses and the wilderness that bred them. Devil's Thunder waits in the heart of the canyon, but he is not the savage beast the townspeople describe. As Margaret approaches, her trained eye sees what others have missed. This stallion carries himself with the bearing of a military mount, his scars telling stories of cavalry service rather than wild living. There is intelligence in those dark eyes, and something else that makes Margaret's breath catch in her throat: recognition. The horse allows her approach without the violence that has terrorized the territory for months. When Margaret extends her hand, Devil's Thunder presses his muzzle against her palm with a gentleness that defies everything the cowboys have claimed about his nature. In that moment of contact, memories flood back with devastating clarity. This is not just any wild stallion. This is Midnight, the horse that belonged to her late husband, Lieutenant James Morrison. The revelation crashes over Margaret like a physical blow. James had been killed 3 years ago in an Apache ambush while transporting cavalry horses through hostile territory. His body was recovered, but Midnight had vanished into the wilderness, presumably lost forever. Now she understands why Devil's Thunder has been attacking anything connected to the military. He is seeking revenge for his master's death, driven by a loyalty that transcends death itself. From the shadows, Iana emerges with information that changes everything. He witnessed the ambush that killed James Morrison, but what he saw contradicts the official military report. The attack was not carried out by Apache warriors defending their territory. It was orchestrated by deserters from Morrison's own unit, men who had been selling weapons to outlaws and feared exposure by their honest, commanding officer. Margaret realizes that both she and Midnight have been living with lies for 3 years. Her husband did not die because of poor judgment or military incompetence. He was murdered by traitors within his own ranks. The horse's seemingly random attacks have actually been calculated strikes against the very men responsible for his master's death, animals possessing a sense of justice that human institutions have failed to provide. The weight of this knowledge transforms Margaret completely. She can no longer hide behind the identity of a simple servant woman, pretending that her past does not exist. Midnight's loyalty has preserved not only his own connection to James, but also the evidence needed to expose the truth about what really happened in that canyon 3 years ago. When Margaret rides Midnight back into Copper Ridge, she is no longer the giant maid who cleaned other people's houses. She is Margaret Morrison, widow of a murdered cavalry officer, and she carries with her the power to destroy the men who have profited from her husband's death. The horse beneath her is not a tamed wild stallion, but a witness to crimes that have gone unpunished for far too long. The townspeople who gather to watch her triumphant return have no idea that they are witnessing more than an impressive display of horse training. They are seeing the resurrection of a woman who thought she had lost everything, and the beginning of a reckoning that will expose corruption reaching into the highest levels of territorial military command. Iana follows at a respectful distance, understanding that he has participated in something far greater than the capture of a troublesome horse. He has helped unleash a force of justice that has been building pressure for years, waiting for the right moment to explode into the open. The Apache warrior knows that the real story is just beginning, and that the consequences will reach far beyond the borders of Copper Ridge. The mystery of Devil's Thunder has been solved, but in its place rises a larger mystery about truth, justice, and the lengths to which people will go to protect secrets that could destroy them. Margaret Morrison has her horse back, but more importantly, she has found the strength to reclaim her identity and fight for the honor of the man she loved. The giant maid's impossible claim has been proven true, but the real test of her courage is yet to come.